Whitest gang on the planet. All right, 3, 2, 1. Welcome everybody to the SideQuest. Your favorite video games podcast of all time. We come at you several times a week to talk about video games. If you haven't listened to the rest of this week's episode, we ask you to rewind and go back and download all of them because they're all good. I'm Dolly Demovsky. We are joined by Aaron Scratty Bones Kelly.
Hi.
And Sam Scratty Bones Dixon.
Hello. Sorry I couldn't make it to any of the other podcasts this week. I didn't know they existed.
You have missed out on so much. How's it going, guys?
I tried to make that greeting as low energy as possible.
Yeah.
I don't know what's happening here, but I was not expecting it.
It's like the bad podcaster intro that I'm trying, which seems to be every podcast apparently that I've been doing my entire life. That's all good though. That's all good.
You're listening to SideQuesting Radio with Dally and the Wolves.
Oh goodness gracious! How you guys doing on this chilly evening?
I'm doing okay.
Is it cold where you guys are at right now?
I'm in Pennsylvania. It's always cold.
It's always cold in Pennsylvania, yeah.
It was unseasonably warm today, like almost summertime temperatures, and
Wow.
then right around 5 o'clock, it just dropped.
It plummeted.
Yeah, I think fall is officially here.
Yeah, it hit us towards the very tail end of last week, probably over the weekend. I think we hit fall weather, and since then it's been cold. So I'm wearing a grandfather sweater right now. For those watching the video feed, I'm wearing a grandfather sweater. We have a bunch of stuff to talk about. We are in the thick of video game season right now, and I have a feeling we'll be doing a bunch of these podcasts over the next few weeks here, which is always good. We may even have a Blade Runner specific episode and some other ones popping up along the way. So we're going to dive right into it. We'll touch on a couple little news bites here because there have been a few news things this week, and then we're going to dive into the main topic, two topics, which is looking at Destiny 2 and Super Mario Odyssey. So news-wise, Paris Games Week is this week, and Sony showed off a bunch of stuff out there, including God of War. So did you guys watch any of the trailers from Games Week?
No.
I tried to catch a couple of them. I'm not sure I saw all of it, but most of the big ones, at least the ones that the internet seems to be chatting about.
The God of War one looked. It's funny because so I'll go through a list of a few of them. God of War looked surprisingly like God of War, which is bizarre, but not, especially from what we had seen of the game in the past. Let me rewind a little bit. Sony led off the Paris Games Week with a bunch of trailers for their press conference. God of War was one of them. Yeah, God of War, Dad of War, looked like God of War with a kid tailing behind you. It was the first time we really saw actual, real, full-on combat. So I think that was pretty cool. But it did kind of go back to what made God of War. So
Butt mashing.
It seemed like it was a lot of butt mashing. Here, I'm going to tweet out for people to watch us live on.
While you're doing that, I plan to watch everything. I'm just sort of front loading it for the end of the week.
Okay.
I'm going to have a lot of time on my hands. But was this event, this Paris thing, announced at all? Because it seemed like everybody on Twitter was like, "Wait, what's happening? What's going on? Oh shit, we got to get online." Sony's doing a thing.
Yeah, I think Sony had talked about doing it because they skipped Gamescom, where everybody else did their sort of European press conferences this year, and just decided to go with Paris Games Week, which seems weird since they have PSX coming up so close. And I assume they're going to do reveals. They've done reveals at PSX the last couple of years. So I think Sony's was known. I don't know. I had only heard Sony's announcements. I haven't gotten any like PR blasts or anything else about anybody else's like big announcements, or if anybody else showed anything that hadn't been seen before.
There really haven't been too many things. There's, there were a few bits of DLC news, loot crates, changes in Battlefront, but that's basically been it. It is interesting. So in the past, Sony has kind of viewed Games Week as, or the industry, nothing against Paris Games Week, but it was never a major show. It had a good showing, but because of where it kind of fell in the thick of the holiday season, or the shopping season, really right in the middle of the big game releases, it didn't really get a lot of viewership from a new announced standpoint. So this year was kind of surprising. Sony does one every year, but the thing, hashtag good God of Dad, good dad. But it seemed like towards middle of last week or so, they announced that, hey, we're going to be doing an actual press conference. And it took a lot of people by storm, to the point where on the day before and early that Monday, people are starting to throw tweets around, like, just hearing there's going to be some pretty big stuff happening at this Paris Games Week event. So, yeah, I think the size of it, the size of the press conference and what was included took a lot of people by surprise. So, but yeah, God of War was one of the things in there. And this is all kind of coming with Sony having sort of a mild fall this year in terms of releases. There isn't, besides Gran Turismo Sport, I can't really think of any other major marquee first party titles. But there are, I guess you say there are a lot of VR stuff. So it looks like they're actually starting to talk more about the VR aspect of things. Did not see a price drop on the PlayStation 4 Pro, but I could kind of see that coming. But yeah, so sorry, you were gonna say?
I was gonna say they might be saving something like a price drop for their next thing.
Their next thing is PSX.
Yeah.
Which is at the beginning of December. So yeah, maybe there's something then. Maybe they're going to do something around Black Friday here in the States and kind of push that and see where, what comes of it. But regardless, to say they had a pretty good showing at this Paris event. So yeah, God of War. They showed Last of Us 2, a new trailer with looked like new characters. And it was pretty brutal. A lot of arms being broken, bodies being hung. I guess the overall mood of this Paris Games Week event was brutality and severity, because that seemed to be something that every one of these trailers showed. So yeah, Last of Us 2 is still being made. And then I think the one that everybody was kind of talking about afterwards was the Detroit Become Human or Becoming Human, whatever that is, trailer, which was set essentially from the vantage point of one of these androids or one of these bots, whatever you want to call them, these replicants. And Kara, and as she's witnessing a father being abusive towards his daughter, and she's trying to figure out what to do in this type of situation. Is she meant to intervene? Is she just the maid? And how does the daughter kind of confide in her? So there haven't really been too many instances of this type of situation in gaming. And I think because it's in an adventure game and it was essentially the soul or the whole core of the Detroit Become Human trailer, that people were kind of freaking out a little bit. So yeah, what was that, Sam? Are you on the expressway right now? Are you in Detroit?
Unfortunately, I have a roadway right next to my house, so if trucks, the world can hear it. It seemed like the Detroit stuff. Like, I understand the commotion around it. Also, it seems like David Cage like questions whether he should be questioned about like things he makes.
Oh, right.
Like it seems like he got really offended that somebody would ask him like, what was, you know, it's like, why did you make this? And it's like, oh, I wanted people to think about it. It's like, well, did you think about it when you made it? He's like, no, I apparently like write and edit in a vacuum and have like no thoughts when I put things. This is just a scenario I know happens, so I put it in here.
So putting aside the fact that David Cage seems like kind of a screw up, I guess.
Yeah.
This is the second time I think that this Detroit game has shown like a vignette in that exact style where they show a bunch of different choices happening, because they did the one on the roof, right, where you could.
Yes, I played that demo at E3. Yeah.
So they started with that vignette, which seemed like it showed off the fact that there were choices, but it seemed very combat oriented. And then the second thing they showed, prior to this, the most recent thing was the uprising, right? Like the riots or whatever. The androids were, and so it made the game seem really, really combat oriented. And I'm thinking one of the reasons this might have been not great, but not the worst thing to show, is because this showed that this game's not combat oriented, strictly speaking. Like this showed that there was actually situations in this game that aren't going to be resolved all the time with guns, even though somebody does get shot in one of the scenes they showed. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and I agree. I think they're it's a David Cage game, and for anybody that's played, you know, Beyond Two Souls, which was the most recent one, that was actually kind of more action than his other games. And then whatever the one Heavy Rain prior to that, and he's had, you know, obviously other ones. They are choice oriented, and there are some action elements, obviously, but he does not shy away from controversy. Anybody that played Heavy Rain knows that when you start to peel away those layers, it's more about just a murderer. There's like big family issues. There's you know, a dad being a bad dad, losing his son with the red balloon. We all remember Press X to Jason. But it's, so there, David Cage doesn't shy away from that stuff. However, it does sort of seem like he tends to really kind of work his way in, or I don't want to say force it into, but that the parent-child relationship becomes it seems to be a big part of all of his stories and all of his games. But I think in Detroit Become Human, you're right. There's these vignettes of how I think the reason that we're seeing these vignettes, the rooftop or this kind of abusive scene, is that they all kind of lead to what does make these androids human. Like, what are humans have to go through these situations whether they're greedy or facing death, or they have to, you know, there's family issues and how they react to those around them. And I think there was a part where the scene sort of zooms out and you see a bunch of screens in the background with all these different vignettes playing. I'm guessing that's what that was. So there's, I kind of get the feeling that maybe these vignettes are these small little stories that sort of activate the androids to realize what it does mean to be human, and that sets them off on their uprising, and you know, they want to kind of find their own humanity. So, but with all that said, I kind of rambled there a little bit. I think what I was trying to get to was, it's cool to show that this is a vignette. This is one scene that could be pivotal to how these androids view humans. At the same time, you don't really learn anything about the game other than, hey, there's this, you know, this family abuse scene that goes on in it. Like, I would have loved to see more of what is this game about. And I think unless you start to put all these pieces together throughout all these demos and these trailers they've put out, they haven't really done a good job of really focusing on what that is. And so they showed this one live play session that's kind of floating in the middle of nowhere, and it may not have a lot of tie-in to the overall story, but it may just kind of paint a small you know, thematic scene. So it felt out of place, I guess, more than anything else. I'm okay with them. I know there's backlash, but I'm okay with this type of content, this type of storytelling in a game. It's just in a in a press conference, it does seem kind of out of place.
Yeah, he has all the demos so far have been like, you know, these huge situations that have no context to them or like no sort of grounding them in what this universe is. And it's just, it seems like with David Cage, every time one of these scenes happens, you're like, oh, so the game's about this. And he's like, nah, none of that's in there. Like, you're reading into it. Like, but I just found this quote from Video Gamer did an interview with him. Or no, the Eurogamer did an interview with him, and they reported on it. And it's like, you don't choose to talk about domestic abuse, Cage said, on the issue of him choosing to write about domestic abuse. Like, like once that game comes out and like maybe we see like the full context of like using the, you know, he said the game's not political and stuff like that. But at this point, like without showing us that the game's not political, the game's kind of political. And you know, it's another one of these Sony products that I feel like we see little chunks of, and we have no idea what the thing is like at all. Like I was just saying in our group chat like yesterday, like that biker gang game, I don't even know what it's called for Sony anymore. They've been showing that for 2.5 years. Yeah, I have no idea what that game's about.
Zombie biker game?
Yeah, other than there's bikers and there's zombies, and I'm assuming guns. And like that's the only thing we know about that game. We don't know if it's open world. We don't know, you know, if it's linear or stuff like that. And I mean, it's nice because Sony has these titles that we're like learning about slowly, and it seems like they're trickling them out. But at what point do people get mad that like everybody's mad at Microsoft that they seem to have nothing going for them? We just keep seeing these trailers that'll eventually come out, but I don't know. I'm not interested in Detroit until I know A, that game's actually coming out, and B, what is that game like other than vignettes.
So check this out. I'm going to do one of my famous, everybody's heard of them, it's why we have our audience, one of my famous predictions.
Here we go.
Detroit Become Human is going to be a game about that android that from the most recent trailer and her quest specifically to become human, and all of the other stories are going to tie into her because this is the second time she's been shown, and they have a line in this trailer about how she's just freshly been reset or something.
Mm-hmm. And so she's a big, she was the, I guess after Beyond Two Souls, they used her, that character Kara, as the tech demo for the PS4.
Yep. That was the same character, and it's the same character and the same actress playing her and all that. So I think everything's going to loop back around, and it's going to be a story of personal discovery and relationships and
if she becomes human.
Indeed.
It's Pinocchio. It's a modern Pinocchio. Wow. I wonder if we'll get a whale.
Sky whale.
Sky whale. Ooh. Anyways, Detroit Become Human. There was also a few other really interesting trailers. We had the Spider-Man trailer, which looks like more of the same type of Spider-Man stuff. I'm actually, it's weird to say, as cool as it's been, it's another one of those games where all we've been seeing is trailers, and you just kind of see more of the same type of stuff in some of these trailers. I don't know what to think. I'm actually starting to get a little bored of Spider-Man because the movie came and went. It was a good movie, and I'm ready to move on. So I'm wondering if it kind of missed its window. First of all, everything that Sony showed the other day said 2018. So they're going to have a really packed 2018 apparently. They've mortgaged 2017 to the Switch because of that. A couple more. You had Sucker Punch finally showed off their next game, which is not Infamous, but it does look like a samurai with superpowers. Ghosts of Tsushima. Go on, which could be pretty cool. Ghosts of Tsushima is my tagline for my excerpt was the world's most infamous samurai. So yeah, I'm hopeful that some of that stuff gets mixed in there. But yeah, hey, feudal Japan, wartime. I think it's a pretty cool, location for pretty cool setting for a game, especially with Sucker Punch's style. And then finally, the other one that I thought was actually really cool. I hope it doesn't go under the radar, but Concrete Genie, which was that sort of painting, that really ethereal. The kid has it revolves around a character, Ash, who has magic painting abilities and creates living characters, and wants to kind of bring life back into his sort of dead city. And he faces off against bullies and uses his paints and stuff to do it. So it's another one of those kind of quirky Sony games that, you know, those indie style artsy games, but I love those. And I'm really hopeful that this art house game, Concrete Genie, turns out to be as cool as a trailer. So some good stuff there. I'm trying to think of any other major news that broke besides Nintendo having massive sales of the Switch, which, yeah, feel free to go and read all that stuff. But the Switch is selling like gangbusters. They upped their yearly sales forecast from I think it was like 10 million to 14 million to with shipments of up to 60 million within the year, which is huge. Essentially, that'll mean that that in less than a year, it'll have outsold the Wii U, which had been around for 5 years, I think, before. That's what
you're missing a very important fact, though.
What's that?
The Wii U sucked.
Oh, that's right, the Wii U.
The Wii U was fine.
Yeah. It was poorly marketed, poorly product placed, but still.
Well, and all the good games came out like the last 2 years of its life cycle. So
yeah, Animal Crossing Amiibo Festival. I mean, although I will say one thing, that I'm hopeful that they do release some of those games on the Switch, because they will look at Mario Kart 8. It's a re-release. There's not really any better visuals. It's already sold 5 million copies. Oh God, that's insane. And that game, I think, sold like 10 million on the Wii, or like 8 million on the Wii U over its lifespan, or something like that. But it's already at 5 million for Mario Kart 8. You'll get there. It's the same game. Zelda's right up there too. So yeah, a very strong year for Nintendo. Strong outlook. I'm actually really interested. I mean, we'll get into Mario here in a little bit, but they had a really, really fantastic year. The first year for the console, and it has had, you can see it's helped propel the games industry forward, because it sort of created not competition, but it upped everyone's game. They got enthusiasm and energy kind of injected back into gaming industry, which I think is sorely needed, because you have, there's as cool as the Xbox One X is, I don't think there's
a single game.
I don't think there's even PUBG, which is, everybody was talking about in this news. We can talk about this too. PUBG, we knew that was coming out as Xbox One X. It was initially going to be a launch title, then a launch window title. Well, now it's not even really launching. It's going to be sold as an early access. Basically, you're going to go to the store and buy an electronic card, an Xbox Live card with PUBG on it, to get the early access version of PUBG. So it won't even have 4K visuals. It'll still be the HDR, which at that point, there is no difference from owning PUBG on an Xbox One X and in regular Xbox One. And then Forza, which looks good, because car games, I think, have very close to hitting their peak already. But yeah, there's not as much enthusiasm around the Xbox One X as I think there could be. So having Nintendo in there to kind of up everyone's enthusiasm is good. That's a good price, by the way, Aaron, all that stuff.
Yeah.
That's a good price. You should totally get that. $350. Aaron just shared in our group chat about Switch carrying case, Zelda and Mario Kart 8 for $350 in his neck of the woods. And yes, you totally should. You totally should. By the way, did you guys see that sweet 2D? There's a Zelda 2DS coming out, or a Link 2DS coming out.
I didn't see that.
Yeah, I think it's hysterical that they're doing like Ocarina of Time 3D on the 2DS, which can't do 3D visuals.
Yep, totally. It is pretty funny, because the 2DS, which I bought the new 2DS XL, it's fantastic. It's maybe next to the DS Lite or the Game Boy Advance SP. I think the 2DS XL is probably my favorite Nintendo handheld device. It's fantastic. So, for them to, but it's 2D. It's not 3D. And so Ocarina of Time 3D is on a 2D device. It is funny how they've packaged in essentially a launch title that came out for the 3DS back in 2011. They're saying, hey, you can still get this game. Remember this game? now we'll sell it to you in a worse version than launch. So enjoy. But whatever. It's a neat color combination at least. Okay, I think anything else news-wise you guys want to cover, or do we want to hop into a couple of these big games?
I don't think there have been any other big news stories, really. It's pretty much just been the conference. Yeah,
the conference and all the games, and we'll talk more about all the rest of these games as the weeks go on. So let's jump in. I want to talk about Destiny 2 because Aaron had a fantastic hot take. If you haven't listened to it or haven't read it, definitely go over there on the site, sidequesting.com. It's a website. Read the hot take. It is it's a good hot take. So you've been playing it on the PC. It's been out on console since the beginning of September, I believe. And when the servers are not down, the game is working. But there are some issues, and Aaron tried to point some of those out with the hot take. So why don't you go ahead and talk a little bit about kind of what you mentioned in the hot take and what you're telling me right before we kicked off the show.
It's just it shoots so good. It just feels good to play, and they made the jumping feel good, which I didn't expect from Bungie because the jumping never feels good to me in Bungie games. Like, I've never liked the Halo games because I don't like how the jumping feels, but they've made it work in Destiny. And then it's very pretty. Like, it looks very good. I don't have a top of the line system, and it still looks really good. And apparently continues to look really good even on the really low end systems that it runs on. Like, it's optimized crazy good. There's but then nothing else is good about it.
Explain.
So they've changed the loot system. So in Destiny 1, you had to grind basically, and grind, and getting the good shit was kind of a process. And people who like Destiny 1 seem to be sort of into that. They like that you.
Yeah, so I just for quick reference, I haven't played Destiny 2 yet. I loved 1. I had to stop because my backlog was ginormous, but I actually enjoyed the grinding aspect of it. I wouldn't say I loved it, but I tolerated it, and I was okay doing it because it felt kind of natural. Like you're saying, the shooting mechanic was really well. It was good in the first one too, and the grind just kind of felt a little bit more than tolerable, like almost like a part of the game, and it was fairly rewarding.
Right. You grind, and at some point, randomly determined by the game's RNG systems, you would be rewarded, and because it was so infrequent, it felt good. In Destiny 2, they're just throwing shit at you. Like, it's crazy how much like stuff you get. Everything you can do if you skip all the cutscenes, which I don't recommend doing because, then you skip all the cutscenes. But if you level up a second character or whatever and skip all the cutscenes, you can get from 1 to 20, maybe 5 hours. And that entire progress, not barely stopping to do any side quests or anything like that, just following the story and shooting stuff along the way, you're going to be at the levels you need to be to do all that content. And then which will get you around 265 for your power level, which is like the very beginning of the end game power level, like the range you need to be in. And then from there on, it starts to slow down, but it's still just easy. It's still everything you get is eventually going to be an upgrade, or you can feed it to upgrade something. And so you're constantly climbing. And that's fine if the game could stand on anything else, but doing anything with anybody in that game is so difficult if you don't already have people to do it with. I went into Destiny 2 because everybody's been talking, since it came out on console, everybody's been talking about like, oh, this is what Destiny should have been. Like, this is the best version of Destiny, and it's so much better. And I'm guessing all of those people had people to do stuff in this game with, because I bought this game knowing basically nobody who would be playing it on PC. Everybody who does play it that I know is on PS4. And there's no way to group up with people naturally in that game. You can't, there's no general chat. So you can't talk to people. If you go to a public event and, 10 people show up or whatever, then if you mesh really well with them, can't say, hey, let's join up. You could try and send them a friend request on Battle.net, and then if they see it in time and if they accept, maybe you get to invite one person in the time, because those events only last a few minutes. There's no clan chat. So if you join a clan, maybe you do super good at a thing and somebody randomly sends you a clan invite. And if you happen to see it and join, that's great, but there's no clan chat. It exists on Bungie's website or on the app. So you have to be outside the game to use the clan chat. There's no way to do it inside the game. So there's no general chat. There's no clan chat. All you can do is emote. And then on top of that, you never see more than 10 or 15 people at the most in any of the zones. Because it's not like everybody says it's an MMO, right? But it's not.
No.
Not really. And like you see, I think the most people that can be in any one instance of any zone is 48. And you only see anything close to that in the tower at the end, like the social hub. But you can't talk to them. You can whisper people, but it's set to automatically be set to, or it's automatically set to off. And because there's no chat, nobody's ever thinking about in terms of text chat. So 90% of the players, I'm just throwing that out there, but most people have that still set to off.
It seems like an issue with when they announced Destiny 2 was going to be coming to PC, people freaked, were flipping out. Hey, finally, Destiny 2 PC is going to be awesome. I can optimize it. And then they found out that you have to use Battle.net and everything that kind of went along with that. It sort of felt, just from what you're saying, it sort of feels like that Battle.net layer is, it is what it is, but there's more layers on top of that maybe weren't quite worked out as well, and it all sort of compounds itself.
Yeah, I was going to say, as a console player on PS4, especially like reading your hot take, there's a lot of it that just seems like kind of crazy for us, because like if you go into the Crucible, or any activity with a group of people, whether you're friends with them or not, in Destiny 2 on PS4, like it's just I think it's either right or left on the D-pad will automatically throw you into group chat, and you can start talking to people right away. I can also walk up to somebody, inspect them as a player, and then send them an invite to my fire team right from there, and then start chatting with them if I wanted to do that. As far as clan chat, there is no clan chat like built into the game, but you can, this isn't a solution either, but you can use their app to use clan chat through there, which is what we do on PS4. And then we also have guided games on PS4, which I'm not sure is available on PC yet. Yep. Which is to do the raids and like the harder challenging stuff, to put you with people, and you have to basically agree to be like, I will be on headset, and if I'm not, like, they can kick me, and there's no repercussions for them. I'm the one that gets punished for not agreeing to these terms or participating in these terms the way that they've set it up. And it just seems like this game is a console game, right? And there was enough clamoring that they got a PC version. And the PC version, by all accounts, like I watched the Digital Foundry video, PC version looks beautiful, runs great. I think it would be weird to play that game in 60 frames per second, since like so much of that game is set to the difficulty is set to them running at 30 and you not being really able to aim as fluidly as it seems like you could on PC. But I feel like this is like, you are in this weird like Destiny 1.5 where it's, this is the first Destiny for PC, and the PC needs different things, especially because you can't use like Discord overlays or anything like that in the game without like getting banned.
That's been thankfully dealt with.
Okay,
they apparently whatever was causing accounts to get banned, Bungie came out and went through all of it, and unbanned something like 400 people who had been erroneously banned, and then apparently the rest of them were cheating on top of it.
Because I would assume that there is there mic voice chat in that game? You just have to be on the same fire team with them?
It's awful. Okay, so first off, the fire team and team, which I don't know the distinction of, but they both have their own text chat. And I think the distinction must be in terms of raid, like because raid has 6 people and fire team has only have 3 people. So I think that's the distinction. Maybe they both, the fire team has voice chat, but it's set to manually opt in by default. So, so again, most people haven't gone into the options and set it to automatically opt in. And if you set it to automatically opt in, then once you go into a strike or crucible or anything, you're just in the voice channel, and then anybody else who's also in the voice channel, you can talk. The problem with that is that the only two sound options in the game are chat volume, which goes from 1 to 8, and master volume, which goes from 1 to 8. And if you have the chat volume set to 8 and the master volume set to off, you can still barely hear anybody unless they are screaming into their mic. It's so quiet. It's crazy how quiet it is. But it exists. It's manually opt in instead of automatically opt in. Like there's no quick button like on the controller or anything like that to just switch into it. You have to go in and manually pick it.
Yeah. Well, I mean, even on PlayStation, not a lot of, if you're just queuing in the Crucible with randos, like no one's going to opt into that chat. And then for like the harder stuff, like I'm not sure you guys on PC have had, what's it called? Trials of the Nine, and Iron Banner and stuff like that, which are like the harder PvP modes, which are supposed to be like more like focused on, being better and bettering yourself and going 9-0 and getting to the lighthouse and winning exclusive rewards or whatever. That stuff you have to go in with a group. I don't think about Iron Banner, but in Trials of the Nine, you have to go in with a group. And that game, that PvP is so focused on team firing and like moving together as a group. Like you will die automatically in a fight if you do not have another person with you. No like headshot skill in the world can win if you're 2v1. And without being able to communicate and that type of stuff, that's not going to make it fun. That game mode is already not fun if you're not a hardcore Crucible player, and not being able to communicate with your teammates will only increase the difficulty.
It's already like that for regular Crucible. If Trials of the Nine is on PC, it just started yesterday. The raid just started yesterday, and I think I read somewhere that the raid and Trials were coming out on the same day, maybe. Okay. So if they are there, they just started. But even regular Crucible, nobody, unless you're in a group together, like if you solo queue in and get matched with randos, either all 4 of you are entirely silent and there's no coordination, or it's you having joined by yourself on a team of 3 people who are obviously in Discord or something.
Yeah. Well, and a lot of Destiny 2 is, I don't want to say the word fan service, but a lot of it like plays towards people that have played Destiny 1. And I know for most PC players, I would assume they haven't played Destiny 1. Or if they have, they have their save on a console. Because like when you boot that game up as a Destiny 1 player on console, it basically looks at your username and stuff and imports like all the things you've done in Destiny 1 and kind of goes through this like this scrapbook. It's like, oh, you remember when you did the raid with these people? And it has all their names and lists the date of when you did it, and like, oh, you won the trials this weekend with these people and stuff. And there's so many like instances of like when you meet the Taken for the first time in Destiny 2, like they mention, there's no reason for the Taken to be there, and then they mention why the Taken are there. And for Destiny 1 players, that's awesome. You're like, oh, cool. But for Destiny 2 players, it's just another faction that they haven't explained that just glows in the dark for some reason.
Yeah, I think I wrote it in the thing in my hot take, but for the longest time I didn't even realize the Taken were a separate faction, because Destiny 2 introduces you to the Red Legion first, right? And the first guys you fight are the big guys in red, like the Legionnaires and the Incinerators or whatever they're called.
Yeah.
And then they introduce you to the Scions, which are their thin little like support units, basically, that teleport around. And then after you meet those guys for the first time, is the next mission you get is the first mission where you meet the Fallen. And those guys, they're like thin little cloaky guys. And I didn't realize they were cloaked at first. So I thought they were teleporting around and popping up behind me. And I was like, am I fighting these guys? Are these the same guys? Where are the big guys? And then there's a side mission you do where you're supposed to set an ambush. And then I was like, oh, they're not the same people at all. But now I'm setting this ambush, and I don't understand why the voiceover is telling me it worked, because I shot the Fallen, and then I used a Fallen teleporter to go to a completely different area, and then I shot the Red Legion for a while, and now I guess the ambush has worked. And
yeah, there's a lot of those scenarios where like you end up, it's like, oh, we should pit them against each other, and you just end up murdering both sides. Even like the thing that's great about Destiny is the end game, and unfortunately, like at some point, the end game gets to be like there's nothing left. Like my group of friends have been playing since the beginning, and we've done the raid once. We've done the nightfalls and stuff, which are the most fun because it's the most, you need to communicate with your teammates. You need to be able to like work together as a team, utilize skills that the game doesn't teach you, but you have to develop over like playing Destiny 1 and Destiny 2. And without chat or without any of that stuff, I would assume the raids are nigh impossible.
You can't even you can't even queue I don't even think you can solo queue into the raid to get matched into a group. Even if you want to try it. If you try that, I think it just puts you in the raid by yourself.
Well, yeah. Well, and guided games at some point will come, I'm assuming, and will offer that type of stuff. But as even on console, as far as I know right now, you queue like to queue into the guided games for the raid, you either have to queue as a group of 5 as your clan and pick up one other person, or you queue as a lone wolf and join a group of 5.
Yeah. The PC version has the guided games for the Nightfall, and it works just like that. It's you either queue by yourself or you queue with a clanmate as a group of 2 and pick up somebody. But the thing about that is, I don't know if it's the same on console, but if you solo queue into it, you have a set allotment of tickets for like guided game tickets. You only get 12, and I don't think they've implemented a way to replenish them.
Yeah, I think they give those tickets like every other week. They give you more tickets. And I think if you're using more of them, they tend to give you more. At least because I didn't use any guided games tickets for like a week or two, didn't get any, and then used like 2 or 3 just to try it out. And then they gave me more like the next time I signed in. Mm-hmm. So I'm assuming if you're utilizing that stuff, they'll and obviously following the rules and not bailing out and actually participating, I'm sure they provide you with more. And to your thing about the grinding, like a lot of the exotics and stuff like that, the game will either just hand you, or like you can like Zur. I'm not sure if Zur's shown up for you guys yet either. Yep. But Zur, like who sold a bunch of different exotics in Destiny 1, essentially sells every exotic you want in Destiny 2. You just got to wait for the week that it comes around. The guns that you want to grind for are a lot of these random guns that ended up being like the strongest ones for the Crucible or for the raid, that just naturally drop at some of these locations. But unless you knew about it when it dropped, at light level 200 or something, now that you're almost 300 and you want that gun, you've got to go back to whatever planet that is and grind for it, or do the specific mission to get it and raise your light level. And I don't know how it is without having a clan or like mostly doing it by yourself, but a lot of getting your light level, once you hit the soft cap at 265, a lot of that is like getting the weekly challenges and getting your powerful engrams, or getting your Crucible and your clan engrams from your clan, either beating the raid or beating the Crucible challenges and stuff like that. So like Destiny, without having other people to do it with, is almost like a crazy proposition. Like Destiny is meant to be played with like a fire team, and unfortunately the only way you can participate with people is either in a group of 3, a group of 4, or a group of 6. And if you have more or less people than that, you're kind of screwed unless you can, if you have like 15 people, only 2 groups of you are going to be able to go on the raid, and you've got 3 that just kind of hang out and could do other stuff. But the problem we keep running into is we have like 8 or 9 people. So like it's always just who are the first 6 that get on, because they're the 6 that are going to be able to do the raid. Or, we'll get caught in some nights where the only thing we need to do is the raid. Like none of us want to go back and do story missions or whatever at this point. There's no new content until the DLC, I think, comes out in December. You're stuck essentially waiting for that 6th person or trying your luck at getting somebody through the guided games, and hopefully they'll be willing to join your voice chat and participate through it.
Yeah. I will say this, aside from those number issues, for lack of a better term at the moment, Destiny does make it very easy to help friends out. Like a buddy of mine started playing like 4 days late or something, and I was already like done all the content and on the grind to get to raid ready level or whatever. And he was like, "Hey, can you come help me out?" And whatever, like doing like quests, like level 5 quests on the first planet. And I just got into a 2-man team with him, and then as soon as he started the quest, I was in the quest with him helping. And like it didn't, like there was no scaling or anything like that. Like it's so weird because it's his quest. He's the one who started it. He's at level 5. I'm at level 20 with just crazy powerful guns. But they've got it set up in such a way that he's shooting a legionary, like with the first enemy in the game, and he's headshotting it, and it's taking 3 or 4 headshots like it usually does, and I'm shooting the legionary right next to him, and it's taking me 3 or 4 headshots. So the way they've got it set up, it feels good, even if you're helping like brand new people. Like it doesn't feel like you're just sitting there holding the mouse button down and just mowing people down with a machine gun or whatever. Like there's no fodder enemies. Like, so you're never like, I don't know what I'm trying to say. Like in terms of, like mechanically, this game is so good. Like it plays so good, and all of those little issues that you don't even really think about until you're presented with them, they're not really there. But then all of the social stuff, everything around that is just non-existent and sucks, and it makes it feel so lonely to play this game if you're playing it like me.
Yeah. Well, and like that's the thing, right? It's like Bungie knows how to make like shooters that play incredibly well, and they know how to make scenarios that makes the act of shooting enjoyable. And I like the thing that like my group of friends is at now is like we're done. We've shot everything, we've seen everything, we've done everything like a handful of times. We've gotten our like $60 out of the game. Like God knows how many hours you have to play before you're even raid ready. Like probably over 30, I'd assume.
I can tell you exactly.
It's a wonderful experience while you're enjoying it. But as soon as you run out of content, you run out of content effectively. And Bungie always makes it a point to point out that this isn't an MMO. It's MMO adjacent, but it's not an MMO. But everything about Destiny screams MMO. And it's hard for a like gaming community that has seen all this stuff before and has been, preached the MMO line of like, oh, there's always something to do and there's always something to see. And then to have a like endpoint to content is kind of weird. I mean, I was never on like the WoW train or anything like that, but it always seemed like from my friends that played WoW, you could dump like 500 hours into each expansion and not complete what all there was to do in these expansions. And something like Destiny is, I think people were looking for that experience. And once you put in 100 hours, there's nothing left for that MMO style of player.
So I've got 38 hours total played so far since I bought the game. And I have
when did you pick it up?
I picked it up launch day, so
okay.
the last Tuesday. It's been a week now, so 38 hours across a week. I've got one character which is I guess raid ready. I'm at power level or item level or whatever they call it, 283, and that character has 36 hours on it. So that's roughly about how long it took me to get from knowing nothing and having never played a Destiny game to ready to do the raid. Because apparently 280 is the minimum for what you need to be able to do the final part of the raid.
Yeah, I think you can go into the raid at 260, but the higher you are, the better off you'll be, and 280 is really where you want to be.
Yeah, so I'm raid ready in terms of power level, but I don't have anybody to do it with. And and to put that into like perspective for what we were just talking about, I'm trying to find it here. FINAL. I've got maybe a little under 10,000 hours in Final Fantasy 14, and I haven't done nearly everything in that game, like not even close. So I've done pretty much everything.
Wait, how many hours?
Probably. Well, it's hard to give an accurate estimation because there's no in-game counter, but I've got 4,384 hours in Final Fantasy 14 on Steam, and then I played it for the year before it was on Steam. So if I was guessing, I've probably got almost 10,000 hours.
Do you leave it on? Are there that many? I don't even know if there's that many. Are there that many hours in a year?
No, I'm not even subscribed to it right now. Like I subscribe to it for a month or 3 at a time and play it pretty much constantly and play it while I'm playing other things. And
yeah,
for what it's worth, 1 year is 8,760 hours. You have played Final Fantasy 14 for a year and a quarter nonstop, all together.
Sounds about right.
That's amazing.
But I mean, that just goes to the point, though, that like Destiny 2 is a console game, and you know actually, Final Fantasy 14 is on consoles, right? But
has chat on consoles. So anybody who's making that argument,
that's true.
Fuck off.
yeah. But
Final Fantasy 11 on the PlayStation 2 had chat on consoles.
Yeah,
I remember that. Yep.
Phantasy Star Online 2 on GameCube had chat on consoles. If you've ever seen that GameCube controller where it's a normal GameCube controller, but in the center is a full QWERTY keyboard.
I love that controller. I think the Dreamcast had one too, and it was massive.
Yeah. But like that's exactly it, right? Like this is an MMO, and the MMO audience on PC was expecting an MMO, and what they got was a console game for babbies, if you want to look at it like that. And they're not getting what they are normally used to on these MMOs. And you know, like console players, you know, love Destiny 2, love everything about it. And then, well, if you go to Reddit, everybody's pissed off about Destiny 2 on Reddit because they've all played for over 100 hours and now there's nothing to do.
Or they're not even talking about that. Just they're posting about how there's no way to talk.
Yeah.
Like like every day there are multiple posts on the subreddit. Like how do I access the general chat? Why isn't there a general chat? Why isn't there a clan chat? At least put a clan chat in. I don't need a general chat if you put a clan chat in.
Well, and you would have hoped with this like delay between the PC and the console version that like maybe Blizzard or you know somebody that's more of a PC focused developer over at Activision would have sat down and looked at Destiny 2 and been like, okay, this is what you guys need to do to get it in line for a PC audience. And I think it's just on Bungie that they didn't know what exactly a PC audience wanted from the game. I mean, that's kind of their fault, but at the same time, like they've never done a PC release. Like even the original Halo was made by Codemasters, right, for the PC, or Gearbox, I think. So like I just don't think they were really prepared for taking their console game on the road, if you want to put it like that. They'll hopefully get there. I mean, Destiny 1 eventually got to where it was a happy medium for everybody on consoles. And, you know, hopefully Destiny 2 takes those lessons for future release content. And hopefully Bungie, or I'm not even sure if it's Bungie that's maining the development on the PC version, but hopefully they can listen to feedback and be able to put that in there and get chat and get other things like that up and running, so PC players can feel at least a little bit more comfortable with what Destiny is.
Yeah. My one other gripe with Destiny 2, on console, does the clan tab work?
Yes. Now it didn't for the first week to show you like how many people were in your clan and if they were on or not. Yeah, that definitely didn't work for the first week, which is interesting that it also doesn't work yet on PC. But yeah, there was that, and there was something else that didn't quite. I'm trying to think what it was. There was something else that like didn't quite work, or like it worked some of the time, and then like they got it up and running by like week 2.
Yeah, the instancing is broken on PC right now. So if you quick travel to a planet, and like half the time apparently the instancing will just dump you into a new instance, and then nobody can join it. So if you wind up on a planet, like if you're grinding like heroic events or something, and you're grinding it with people, don't ever fast travel, because it will dump you into another instance and you'll lose those people forever. So everybody just travels around on their bikes or their speeders or whatever they're called, sparrows.
Yeah, that still happens on consoles too. Like if you're in a fire team and you transfer somewhere else, and then they'll transfer to the one with you. But the solution that console players came up with is if you get put in your own instance in the public event spawns, you just fast travel back to that same place until you get in an instance where somebody else is sitting in there with you, which again is not a solution and is not an answer to the problem, but is like what people have figured out. And also, like once people hit 20, everybody figures out how the heroic events work, and then every event is a heroic event. So it kind of like loses that that sort of like, oh man, we pushed it heroic, like awesome, or like whatever. It's like after the first week, every event's a heroic event, so you might as well just start them as a heroic event.
They were basically all heroics from the jump for me, because everybody already knew, because console version's been out for 2 months, I guess.
September 6th, I want to say.
Yeah.
Yep. So everybody already. So just I've seen there are public events that I've seen the heroic event version of that I haven't seen the regular version of yet. But yeah, that's Destiny 2, I guess. I'm not sure I have anything else to say on it.
Well, I mean, I'm good. Go ahead.
I was just gonna say, good game, but play it with friends.
Yeah,
and that's the thing. I learned that in the first Destiny. My favorite times are playing with my side questing peeps, but I don't get a chance to play all the time with people because my hours are so screwy. And I guess what I'm saying is that I hope it comes to Switch. No, I'm just kidding. I eventually will jump into it. I have not had. I'm kind of been stuck on single player games, or at least games that offer a better single player experience. I can get the majority of the game by myself. But whatever. Destiny 2 is still being played often by a lot of people. Meanwhile, I'm jumping back into Destiny 1. So I guess that's my.
Apparently, it has more features than Destiny 2 right now.
Oh yeah.
There was I saw a list.
Oh really? There are lists.
Yeah, like there's a bunch of Crucible modes that they removed for Destiny 2, and there's a bunch of other stuff that they removed for Destiny 2. So like Destiny 1, I think if you were to bullet point everything the two games do, Destiny 1 has more features than Destiny 2, which is sort of weird.
Another game that we can talk about that's also a sequel, but not really, and has a giant magical world is Mario Odyssey. Super Mario Odyssey. Sam, have you been playing it?
Yes, not as much as I'd like to be, but I have been playing it.
Okay, oops, sorry, I'm getting some crazy sounds coming over here. Yeah, I unfortunately suffer from the I have a 8-year-old daughter now who has gotten very good at video games and prefers to play Mario. She got it for her birthday, and she's been stealing the controller from me and playing it, unlocking all the power moons, which I wanted to do, and plowing through the story, through the plot. So I'm like, slow down. I want to be part of all this. But my God, is that just a absolutely wonderful, magical, fun, joyful game. I'm in love with it.
Does it answer the question everybody wants to know? What species is Mario?
Oh, yeah. Game journalist.
Yeah. It has it, yeah.
I
posted a photo of Mario from Mario Odyssey standing next to one of the people from the Metro Kingdom, and he's obviously short and squat and Mario proportioned, and one of the game's kingdoms is they have regular proportion people, and him standing next to it is, I think somebody posted video game journalist next to political journalist.
I was doing a little bit of cursory research on Odyssey, and I noticed that oh shit, what's the mayor's name?
Pauline.
Pauline's character design has basically been that exact same thing since she was introduced. Like same proportions and everything. She's never looked the same proportions as Mario. So if she looks like that, and now there's a whole city full of people that look pretty much, the same as her proportion-wise, and Mario still looks like Mario, it stands to reason that it's not a stylistic choice. Mario, not a human.
That could very well be it. Mario may not be a human. Obviously, he's not a human when he can throw his hat onto fish and take over their bodies. How far are you in the game, Sam?
Well, I have made it to the Metro Kingdom, which we've seen in trailers. So I feel good about talking about. Like, I almost don't want to talk about like certain environments and stuff. I mean, that game is just so incredibly charming. And it has so many callbacks to like older Mario games through level design and like certain like characters, and even like certain environments that you get to that like really like reference heavily other like 3D Mario games. Like the thing that got me so good when I first realized it is when you die, you don't have a life system like you normally do in Mario games. But when you die, you lose 10 coins, and the audio file that plays is the exact same audio file that played in Mario Paint when you played the Fly Swatter game and you swat one of the flies and the fly like falls down the screen. That's the audio file that plays when you lose coins when you die, and it's just so like why is that there? There's absolutely no reason for it, but it fits so well, and like it takes old Mario ideas and flips them on their head while also like providing, you can do the triple jump from Super Mario 64 and the like long jump, but then also it gives you the ability to like Sonic the Hedgehog roll, which like hasn't been in like any Mario game as far as I know. And like, that even like with that has like advanced like movesets to it where you can speed up that circle, but if you go to speed it up while his feet are right on the ground, like it boosts you faster, as opposed to doing it while he's on his back in the roll. And man, I say it every time we talk about games, but movement in that game is so important and so good. And there's even situations where you're supposed to capture something and use it to get up an environment or get around something. But if you're good enough with your like own form of expression and Mario's moves, you can just do it through his jump patterns and like jumping off the hat and like grabbing it back and throwing it, jumping off it again. And it's just so good. It's so good. It's exactly how Zelda was at the beginning of the year, where it takes everything that every Zelda game has done and remixes it into its own thing while adding other stuff that feels like it has been there the whole time.
And it incorporates, like you're saying, this sort of bizarre set of physics where it encourages you to screw around and try things, and you're gonna get things by accident without maybe not doing it the intended way to do things. I got so I'm like 4, 5, 6 kingdoms, and there are a ton of worlds in this, a ton of kingdoms. And one of the kingdoms, which has been in trailers and demos, is Toast Arena, which is sort of the frozen desert kingdom. And there are these big platforms that you need to get to that are kind of floating above the whole of Toast Arena, the whole kind of sand kingdom area. But you can't get to them until much later. You kind of, after you complete that level and kind of go back a few times. Somehow I managed to get up on top of one of those platforms by accident and just screwing around with the hat jump mechanic, which is just so funny because you'll throw the hat and you could jump over to the hat and bounce up over the hat, and at the same time throw the hat again really fast. And if you're lucky, you can sort of use that as a strange climbing mechanic where, and they try to limit you so you don't make your way, you know, you can't fly the moon with this thing, but if you time it right, you can actually get up to some pretty high distances with this silly little mechanic, and it's only because it's got this strange physics built into it. I mean, even rolling the Sonic roll thing, you can roll down a hill, and then I think there's a in the first area you get to in the game is Cap Town or Bonnet Town, and it's essentially right when the game launches. This is where you are, and it's where you get Cappy the hat, and they have these time trials that you can do there, and they require you to do some of the rolls to get up and down the hills, and I found myself doing triple jumps to get the first time around, doing triple jumps to get up the hill and then a roll to go down. Well, I realized that to get it going really fast and to kind of flip the physics on its head was to do the triple jump going down, and then right when you're about a third of the way down the hill to go into a spin, because that will launch you up the side of the hill, and then you go into another triple jump. And I was able to obliterate my times in these time trials just by screwing around with the way I was doing the jumps and the rolls and stuff. It's so fun. And the accidents, I think, the accidental moves, when you're bouncing off other characters, there's I won't spoil it, but there is a character in there from a very recent Mario game, which they even have his music, and it's one of my favorite characters in all of Mario lore now. But you can bounce on his head. You can bounce on a lot of the characters' heads. You'll just bounce on their head, and it'll bounce in place nonstop until you move off the character. And my daughter was having such a great time bouncing on this dude's head that she set the controller down and just watched for about 10 minutes and played with her toys while Mario's bouncing on this dude's head nonstop, and you just hear it, whatever the sound that Mario makes as he's bouncing. It was so funny, and so much of the charm is in this game. I mean, there's characters everywhere. You can throw the hat onto everything and possess all kinds of weird things. It's great. It's so good. It's so fantastic.
Yeah. Well, and I think I said this with Zelda too, but there's been photo modes in hundreds of games now. But man, being able to do like photo mode with Mario and like being able to set up like really dumb situations and then going into the Switch's like album thing and putting your own text, like it's so dumb and so good. But like I find myself like being, like doing something and going, well, that's cool, but like now I need to do it again so I can get a sweet photo of it.
Yeah. They've salvaged so many things from that from Mario 64, and you do notice things in there that they've learned from like Mario Galaxy, the Mario 3D Land and 3D World games. Level design is very open world level design, but I think the puzzles from the newer games mixed with the open world from 64 and Sunshine works extremely well.
Yeah, like I enjoyed that there's like rooms that that you go into that are basically like mini like 3D world levels, and they usually have like a moon or two in them, and they usually have like the same thing that 3D World did, where there's a theme or like an idea of how you get through this chunk, and if you do it well, you get to the end, and if you can do it in a more advanced way, you get the like extra moon that's hanging out in there. And then they do stuff like Sunshine, where like the flood and his movement was a big portion of like most of that game, but they would take flood away from you, and so in this they take the hat away from you.
Oh man, completely changes how you
so it changed it. So you can't capture, like I always use the hat throw as like a buffer for jumps and stuff to like land placement. Can't do that anymore. So you basically have to teach yourself like how to move safely without having the security of the hat. And it's just, it's so good. Like I feel like it's a more modern thing, unless you count like Banjo-Kazooie, for like 3D platformers to have like transformations or have like, you know, different things that completely changes the moveset of the main character. And instead of transforming Mario, we're now using Mario to mind control somebody else to take their abilities. And there might be like 4 or 5 different sort of capture people that you can capture in that like world and use their abilities to take advantage to find like different moons and stuff like that, or like capture one character from one side of the map and take him all the way to the other side. And end up using him, or you know, it in a way that like maybe even like, you know, you're not supposed to, but you're like, well, that'll work if I get it over here. So it's, man, it's so smart. And I've heard that the end game of that of Mario, because my only complaint with it right now is I wish there was more like hardcore Mario challenge about it. Like so far, everything I've kind of encountered, like after like 1 or 2 goes, it's pretty easy to, at least if you can't do it, to at least see like exactly how it's done, and you'll come back later and get it. I would prefer if there is some like huge difficulty spike somewhere. Like I want to be like controller throwing mad at Mario, because there was stuff in I don't remember if it's 3D World or 3D Land, whichever one's on Wii U. Like once you complete the sort of main crux of that game, the difficulty curve goes way up, and like requires you to have like advanced knowledge of the movement and sort of Mario in itself to get that sort of hard stuff. And I know why they don't have that in the beginning of the game. I just hope that it is there at the end.
Even if it's not there, playing this just for complete joy is totally fine for me. I do wish though that they'll do something like they did with New Super Mario Brothers U, where they made a new Super Luigi U and make maybe like Luigi's Odyssey as a sort of a short, you know, type of DLC that tags onto this and flips the difficulty, either ratchets it up a notch or adds you know, new puzzles or more difficult things on there. I could see them going that route, and I'd be totally okay with it. But yeah, I noticed it too. There are some puzzles, or the majority of puzzles are fairly doable. You'll get a few that take several tries, like the stupid but wonderful Jaxi, the taxi.
The drift car, effectively.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and it wasn't until I figured out how to brake. So it's the Sphinx that you can get at some point in one of the levels, that's constantly running. So it's like what the penguin and the penguin races, where you have to be very careful when you're sliding around corners and stuff. But in this case, Jaxi, the running Sphinx or whatever he is, the lion, I don't know what he is, he can drift around corners, but you can also you essentially use the brake button to drift. But you can also come to a dead stop, which I didn't know that. I thought you could only drift because I was tapping the brake button and bringing them around corners. And then I found out you could stop, and that completely changed the mechanic of the game to almost like a RC car racing, like free running type of experience. And it was so bizarre just to get at points difficult, but then when you get it, you're like, oh crap, I can't believe that it was actually that easy, or it was actually that manageable. So yeah, really cool levels. I do wish there's more of a spike in there. I will say though that I like that they've included so many ways to kind of enhance the game with, you know, amiibo, give you different outfits. or they'll you could send your amiibo out to find more of the power moons, which are sort of like the overarching thing you got to find in each of the levels. And from what I'm hearing, there's like 800 power moons in this game. So I'm totally okay with that. I've got about, I think, 65 or 70 right now, because I've only gone through a few of the only the first few kingdoms, but I keep going back and trying to get everything out of those worlds. But it's just so good, so pretty, fun. There's so many fun moments in there. The first time you capture a chain chomp and learn how to use the chain chomp mechanic, oh god, like to pool Q, out of the way. It's so good. It's pure joy.
Well, and it's just some genuinely funny writing too, which like sometimes Mario Mario writing like tries a little too hard, or is like overly childish. But I mean, I guess I'll spoil this too. But you mentioned about that Jaxi the taxi. There's in that world there is a statue of one of them that's sort of sitting, and there's like a little platform that's next to it, and it doesn't really point out that like, hey, you're supposed to park like this guy on this other thing so they're facing each other, but when you do, he sits there and he's like, oh, you softy, like you want me to go see you want me to see my relatives, that's so kind of you, and then he gives you a power moon for it, and it's hysterical. There's just little moments like that, or like when you're in like New Donk City and they even comment like what did you just do there? Like, did you just control that man? Like they're horrified by like what's going on.
Even when there's like you have to answer the riddles of the Sphinx in one of the areas, so it's pretty funny when you do, and all his riddles are like, so here's a riddle, and here's the 4 answers, and it's going to be really difficult, but what does Bowser want to do? And you're like, oh, try to marry Princess Peach. That was explained like the opening scene of the game. And he would reply back with, oh, yeah, I guess that wasn't very difficult, was it? All right, here you go. Go ahead. Here's the power moon. It's like, what? It's fun. It's great. It's so good. And even that town is great. That Tostarena town is so funny. So it's such a great game. Aaron, get it.
I have 3 questions, I think.
Okay.
I'll start off with the biggest one, I suppose.
Yoshi. No, I'm just kidding.
Nope. That's actually question 2 and 3.
I would like to know the answer to that question also.
But the first serious question. So you mentioned Odyssey has like 800 or whatever those moons you need. Zelda had 900 Korok seeds. Is this starting to be a trend? Did Nintendo take the wrong lesson away from the deluge of open world games on the other consoles that were just constantly filling themselves with stuff to go do? Like in Zelda, you don't need the 900 seeds. You only need like 400 of them to completely max everything out.
Yeah, so with Mario, like I think it works exactly like Mario 64 did. There's a certain amount of moons that you need to get when you get to a kingdom to move on to the next one. And it varies by world. And some worlds only have like, 30 some moons in them, but then some worlds have above 70 and stuff like that. So it really just depends. And you only need the amount to move on. I think there's specific power moons you need to move on. Like you have to like fight the boss or, whatever mini boss or whatever situation is in that world you need to complete. But other than that, you don't need, okay, if this world has 50 moons, I need 48 of them to move on. You only need like maybe a third per level, if not less.
Yeah, there's one portion of so you fly around in the Odyssey, which is just Top Hat style spaceship or Top Hat style airship. And at one point around the map, you can, your possible path split. You can say, okay, I'll take either path A to this kingdom or path B to this kingdom. So we took path A and we got there with like 48 moons or something like that. And we needed 50 moons to get to the next kingdom. And so we were able to go right to the mini boss and kind of the final level boss and just beat those within like, 15, 20 minutes of getting to that level, we were already on to the next level because we'd already collected so many moons from the, Daddy Demovsky spent time with his only time playing the game was to collect the moons while his daughter was doing the story. So, I had all these moons saved up. We were able to kind of zip through there, but at the same time, like what Sam's saying, you have sort of this baseline amount that you need to get to pass by a number that I think the game is designed to let you get them in any way you can, whether you make it more of a challenge or you're just trying to, zip through the plot, the story. There actually is one, surprisingly. Then you can get some of them pretty easy enough that you can kind of leverage your.
Yeah, most of the ones you need to move on to the next world are all like on the critical path to completing whatever the mission is, specifically for that level. So maybe like one or two of them you'll have to like venture off the path to like sort of find, but you're getting the majority of them going to whatever the mission is.
Okay. Question 2. Is Yoshi in the game?
There is a giant dinosaur that you see at the very beginning of the game, and I will leave it at that.
So, question 3. Can I throw that giant dinosaur that you're leaving at that in lava or a hole to kill him repeatedly?
I mean, technically, yes.
Yeah, I guess.
Like you could definitely walk him off an edge and then uncontrol him. He'll endlessly respawn though. They kind of like whenever you like take control of a monster or a character or whatever, some of them have sort of hard caps on how long you can do it. Like the bullet bills make sense because they eventually explode. But like the Goombas, you could like run around as a Goomba all day if you wanted to. But something like the dinosaur has like not a stamina meter, but must have a set like amount of time, like let's say a minute. And once that minute runs up, it indicates that, hey, your time with this thing is running out rapidly. Like pay attention, don't walk over a hole right now.
So you're suggesting that there are creatures in this game who fight back against your control of them.
Yeah, yes, absolutely.
Totally. Expel you from their consciousness.
Yeah. And some of them will, when they expel you, will sit there and they'll stay like stunned for a minute. And they have like stars flying around their head. Yeah. And you can either recapture them there, or some of them also will just like dissipate or explode or whatever they do. Once that time period runs out, and you'll have to go back to the location where they were at. They'll respawn in like 15, 20 seconds or so.
Some of their reactions are so funny because some of them can talk, and when you do capture them, like there's a Lakitu. I'll spoil it a little bit, but there's a Lakitu, which is that the turtle, the Koopa in a cloud from all the Mario games. And if you capture him, yeah, exactly. And if you capture him, he'll you do whatever you have to do with him, and then you hop off of him, and he'll just kind of look around. He'll be like, "What just happened? What was I just doing?" But the commentary they use, his description of what he just went through is pretty funny because you have whether it's an enemy or a human. I mean, you've captured a sentient being here, and they're trying to deal with the fact that somebody else was in their head. And so these reactions can be pretty funny, whether it's from the humans that see you do it or the people that you're doing it to.
Well, or like there's some that are afraid of the monsters and stuff, and you'll control the monster and you'll walk up to them, they'll freak out, and then you'll pop out of the monster and they'll be like, "Oh, okay, no Mario's here. That's cool. Like we're fine now."
So good, it's so good, and the visuals are fantastic. We've been playing on the big screen. I haven't played it in portable mode yet. I think because I want to see the entire screen laid out. For me, for Mario games like that, I like it better on a giant screen because I can see the puzzles better. Whereas something like Mario and Rabbids, I focus more on the what's happening in my immediate vicinity. But
I do have one actual legitimate question about this game. So I'm somebody who's never really liked a Mario game past the Super Nintendo, but I like watching Mario games. Like I'll watch a speed run of Mario 64, for example. Is this game a game I might want to play?
To me, yes, because it capture it. I hate saying capture, but it feels like to me, it feels like they took a lot of what I liked about Mario 3, which was the really inventive worlds, all the cool enemies, and then Mario World, which had awesome mechanics, gameplay mechanics, mechanisms, secrets, ways to kind of complete levels, which, Mario World was infamous for giving you sometimes 2 or 3 different ways to complete levels. And so it kind of jams both those together. And Mario 64 is, like Sam said, there's so many aspects of previous games that work into this that you can find a lot of that kind of stuff in here. I guess for me, I would say, you would probably like it if you were a fan of those kind of the earlier NES and Super NES iterations of the series. But the added layer of really funny writing and inventive uses of the game's physics, I think, are what winning me over more than anything else. There's so many additions to this, like the photo mode, like you were saying, Sam. It lets you choose from whether you go, there's a sepia tone, there's a black and white sketch tone, blurry mode, but then here's what the game would look like if it was an NES game.
Or like a game if it was printed out on a Game Boy printer and stuff like that. Yeah.
Or here's the Campo Santo version, the Firewatch version of the game. It's pretty cool. All the little things that you can get carried away. I mean, really, you can get lost doing everything in this game without it's so open world that I forget that there's an overall plot to pass through, to kind of complete. And I think that's a telltale of to me, it's a telltale of a good game in that I'm able to just have fun doing everything and anything and screw around with stuff and not have to worry about being pushed forward. Whereas sometimes open world games, you hit a point where you're kind of stuck and you can't do anything else, and you have to go along with the plot and story. This is, I think, because it's so action based, it lets you have a lot more fun and screw around a little bit more.
All right.
So yeah, I think you'd like it.
I might have to actually get this game then, assuming I get this, get the Switch.
And the ability now to do the videos is pretty cool, because I've been posting some videos and photographs and stuff on social media, and it's fun to kind of see how everybody's solving different areas.
I have like a small album on the Switch that like I'm waiting for. I'm gonna wait a couple of weeks until like everybody like sort of gets the first wave of being able to see things. But like I sent you guys that Koopa.
Yeah,
that looked like it was like tripping. In the group chat. And there's dumb stuff like that. Like there was a bunch of characters like in an area, some like pretty like traditional Mario characters, if you want to call them that. And they were all like staring in different ways. Took a photo of it and being like, "Oh, my contemporary Christian album's like dropping like next month." And like there, and you can do that in any photo mode in any game, but there's just something great about like Nintendo being 100% okay with their like main franchise guy, that you can do anything you want, and you can play dress up with him. I mean, you can run around shirtless in underwear in this game.
Yeah, it's great.
That's something Nintendo's like, yeah, cool, it's in the game. Like, go ahead.
I like the naked cowboy, which is the boxer shorts and a cowboy hat.
Yeah.
God, it's so good. It's so fun. It's just the kind of game where you can goof around and play and zone out. I think that's always a positive. And Nintendo does those games really well. It's going to come down to between these two games for me for Game of the Year. And Nintendo has had barring some other games coming out, the rest of the releases between now and the end of November and a couple things in December. But it's so good. They're great. It's fantastic bookends to this year by Nintendo. They launch with a fantastic game in Zelda, which lets you solve problems and do things and solve puzzles any way you want to. And then they end with a game that's, I don't want to say the same vein, but lets you do things any way you want to, but puts an incredibly fun and less serious spin on it. And way more, I hate to say accessible in a bad way, but it is way more accessible than Zelda. And I think that it's showing with the sales. I mean, they said that they sold 500,000 in Japan in like 3 days. Now, Zelda had like 600,000 or 550 or something, but only because that was the first Switch game. So with the Switch launching, everybody bought Zelda. But I think there's going to be a pretty close to a 100% saturation with Mario Odyssey across Switch owners, because it is such a good game. It's I'm extremely happy. I get happy and giddy playing it. It's very rare that a game will let me do that. So there you go, Mario Odyssey, worth the pick up. I'm sure we'll talk about it more as we get more of us are playing it, and we get a little bit beyond the release, so we don't spoil too much stuff. Maybe we'll do a spoiler cast later on. But yeah, and there's lots of other games. We'll talk more about other games. We've already been chatting for an hour and a half at least, so maybe we'll put a kibosh on it this time, and we'll talk more the next time. I'm sure we'll get Zach and Tom and Corey and some other folks online as well. But I guess with that said, let's just wrap it up. You can find us at sidequesting.com, at sidequesting on the old social media, Twitter, Twitch, all that kind of stuff. SideQuesting TV in some places. Rate, review us, comment, like, subscribe, tell your friends, retweet, send messages and emails, post it on your company message board. Do one of those little tag things where you post like, hey, listen to SideQuesting, and pull a tab to find the address. But they're all QR codes, and you have to buy it with Bitcoin. So there we go. You can find us individually. I'm at Dolly Demovsky. Sam, where can they find you?
At SamDI79 on Twitter. Let's see.
Monthly tweet.
Yeah, let's see an update right here when my last tweet was. Well, I guess I retweeted that we were live.
Okay.
I talked about the Bowser fidget spinner that you can find in Super Mario Odyssey on the 28th. The 27th, I posted that drug using Koopa.
Yep.
And then before that, I posted about a game winning field goal kick on September 23rd that I had at work. So,
up to date news.
All the latest up to date news and reviews.
Aaron, where can we find you?
You can find me on Twitter at ScrattyBones. You can find me on Twitch, same at twitch.tv/ScrattyBones. And I'm going in for surgery tomorrow, so if I die, remember me as the guy that was very vocal about not liking Destiny.
Little did you know that your surgeon is a Destiny fanatic, and so. Oh goodness! Yeah, wishing you the best of luck there, Aaron. We're sure you'll survive.
It'll be fine.
Yeah, you'll be good.
They're putting me under for it.
You can, if you feel like poking around with Aaron and finding out what he's doing, feel free to message him. Maybe he'll explain. Who knows? But other than that, we thank you guys for listening and watching and sharing all that fun stuff. We'll see you on the next side quest. Bye. Peace.
Bye, friends.
Bye.